So this session is called the Just for Me classroom, personalize and localize learning. And I know, for lots of us, that has been one of our teaching superpowers for a long time, is the ability to get to know our students and get to know what they're into, understand the sort of uniqueness of where we live, start to understand our local culture, our students' family cultures, and just all of the things that tie into what make us unique in a particular school site, and then being able to weave that into the classroom in some way. And of course, now we have new tools and new technology that can help us do that. And so I wanted to start this by showing you a little bit of my own personal local uniqueness. So I live right here in Park County, Indiana, county seat of Rockville, Indiana. And we call ourselves the covered bridge capital of the world. There was that movie called The Bridges of Madison County. We have more covered bridges than they do. We have 31 covered bridges in our little teeny tiny rural county of West Central Indiana, 31 of them. And we actually have this enormous festival called the Covered Bridge Festival. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that in a second, but the bridge that you can see, the Mill Creek Bridge, which is in the top right and the top middle, that's like a mile from my house. I've got a 4-mile running loop whenever I go out and run, where I'll go right through the Mill Creek Covered Bridge. And of course, it's become part of our lives and part of our identities. Though the image in the top right is my daughter, Cassie, who used the covered bridge as part of her senior pictures. There was a family right down the road from me that actually held a wedding ceremony at this particular bridge because it's just right nearby. So, all of the things that happen to us in our local communities become part of us, right? Ingrid asked in the chat, why do you have covered bridges? There's lots of lore and sort of like history behind why people think that it happened. For one, it covered the bridges up so that weather wouldn't destroy them, so that they would be preserved a little bit longer. And there's also, that people seem to think that if you're out, with a horse and a buggy, or a wagon of some sort, and like a thunderstorm shows up, or if you need a little bit of cover, then you're able to stop in the covered bridge. So anyway, I bring up covered bridges and the Covered Bridge Festival. Actually, I got to tell you just a little bit about this real fast. So if anybody's from Indiana, like Ashley may be familiar with this. Yeah, she said it's actually one of the biggest festivals in Indiana. So if you're near Indiana, you could be one of 2 million visitors that we have to the Covered Bridge Festival annually, even though our county only has 16,000 people. 10 days, Friday to Sunday, and it covers all of the towns in our county. Anyway, it's kind of a big deal. The food is really good. And the reason that I bring this all up is that the teachers in our county have learned how to use the Covered Bridge Festival and use the covered bridges in instruction. And because even though it's covered bridges for us, it's probably something else for you. Like,
Yeah,
you
for
could
me, it's
probably,
Yosemite.
yes, exactly. With John, it's Yosemite. Gene,
I
what would
do
it
my
be for
best.
you, do you think?
Oh, it'll be San Diego, like La
He's
Jolla
got,
Beach, probably. Yeah.
yeah, he's got the
Yes, yeah, La
beaches.
Jolla, absolutely. I took my family there on vacation, and it was the coolest thing. I was like, man, the beaches out here are like rocky and hardcore compared to the like nice soft beaches we have over here on the East Coast. But um, anyway, so when it comes to all of this, you have your own sort of uniqueness, and when your students know that whenever you tie some of that stuff into instruction, it's big. And it doesn't have to be things about your particular location. It can be, that your students are into Takis and
Mhm.
they love their Takis.
They
And
are.
if
That's
you can,
crazy, dude. It is
I know, yeah,
crazy. Hockey's
Takis are a
addiction is,
thing.
yeah.
But if you can take some of those ingredients, and in chemistry class, if you can like diagram out some of the ingredients and show them
hmm
how, I don't know, I'm not a science person, but like how Takis get their like flaming hot flavors or
hmm
something, all of a sudden they're hooked, So, and there's lots of ways to be able to do that. Of course, if I'm wanting to do a little brainstorm on covered bridges, K-5 reading can compare them to other bridges around the world. K-5 math could compare Covered Bridge Festival visitors, the number of visitors, to our county population. Art could design a covered bridge out of popsicle sticks. History could research the purpose behind covered bridges, which we just covered a second ago. Business could study the impact of the festival on the community, and even a math class could look at vendor sales and profit margins. There's like all of these ways that you can tie it in. And the bottom line here is that we have this great opportunity right now. Because if we're being honest, one size fits all teaching just does not fit all of our students. If we're going to just pull a textbook off of the shelf and just walk our way through chapter by chapter by chapter, I mean, I wrote a book and a website called Ditch That Textbook. You know that I'm not into this kind of thing, but we have this opportunity now to try to make things relevant to our students and make it interesting if we're willing to get to know our students and get to know our communities. It's like that meme that you see on social media sometimes that says, "Thanks for that inspiring worksheet," said no student ever. It's like,
But I think of this, Matt, like for you guys, the bridges are a point of pride. It's like the coolest thing
yes,
ever. But if we made the whole country focus on your bridges, it's not as interesting.
yeah,
It's,
that's right.
it's just that little shift. For you, it's incredibly personal. But
Yeah.
if it's somebody in Arizona, they're like, bro, that doesn't even make any sense. What are we doing?
Mhm. Which is why I was afraid that once I got started rolling on the bridges, I'm hoping that people aren't like, "Oh my gosh, he's still talking about those stupid bridges."
Yeah, as a bridge maniac.
But I think I'm done with the bridges now. So related to that, all of that localization, all of that connection to students' culture, to their interest, it used to be hard to come up with those ideas, but now we can
Mhm.
tailor learning to our students' location, to their culture, and to their interests. I actually kind of like this tailor analogy, because
Yeah.
if you buy something, let's go back to that previous guy in his frumpy suit. If you buy something right off the rack that's made for everybody, when you make something for everybody, you actually make it for nobody. But if you can make some of those small customizations, it makes all the difference in the world. Like with this guy right
Yeah.
here, you don't have to make a suit that is completely and totally different than anything anybody's ever seen. You just need to make a few adjustments, and all of a sudden it feels like you. And I think that's really all we've got to do. And it actually used to be really hard to be able to do this. In fact, and this statistic from the Fordham Institute probably rings true to a lot of you, that 83% of teachers say that differentiation is somewhat or very difficult to implement. And a lot of times, the knock on differentiated instruction was just, "Oh man, I got all of these students, and it's like I've got to create 25 different lessons for 25 different students, and ain't nobody got time for that." But the
Yeah.
reality is,
That's
is that
probably
yeah,
That's
John.
probably one of the things I think somebody looked at the word differentiate and then they looked at the root. And differentiate doesn't mean everybody has a different lesson,
Hmm.
a different worksheet, a different
Right.
teacher edition. It means they can have choices in how they execute on the lesson.
Mhm.
And Matt, I've been teaching long enough. I remember when we would do our ancient Rome reports last century, um, that oh my God, the kids would run to the library because once the R encyclopedia was checked out, everybody else was down for 3 days.
Yes.
Right? So look at the world we're living in, and yet we're still
Yeah.
struggling with differentiation, even though our kids have all these devices and all this internet.
Yeah, you're right. And the nice thing is that differentiation doesn't have to be driven by the teacher anymore. We now have
Yeah.
more and more potential and opportunity. And actually, I'm sure we're going to be talking about that a little bit later. It's one of Gene's favorite things to talk about whenever we talk about AI and education, is putting power into the hands of the students. So when it comes to all of this, what are we really talking about? I always like to bring it back to these three pillars of differentiated instruction. This is one of the core things that I've
Mhm.
learned from reading from Carol Ann Tomlinson and all of her writing about differentiated instruction, is that there's a variety of different ways to differentiate instruction, but these are the three of the main ones. You've got content, process, and product, right? You're differentiating the content, what the students are learning, which sometimes means small adjustments or sometimes means big shifts based on who they are and where they are and what they need. Differentiating for process means the way that they are learning, right? And so we're able to make some adjustments in the way that we teach them and the modalities and the learning resources that they have. And then maybe my favorite one is differentiating for product, which is,
Hmm.
like what is it that they're doing to show learning? And Terry just asked in the chat, is this learning geared toward preschool learning? I'd say the stuff that I'm talking about through all of this is really for PK all the way up through graduate level
Yeah.
university. The idea of that just for me learning. So even with preschool, you could differentiate for product by having them show you what they've learned in a different way, by asking the question a different way, or by having them point to a picture or something like that. And even the content can be varied too. If that you've got a class that is like exceptionally excited about Bluey, then maybe you make some
Mhm.
sort of connection to Bluey instead of, whatever it is that you were going to do.
Yeah, and then
Now,
Matt, in a slightly older grade level, I've got a friend who does March Mammal Madness, right? And so back to your three pillars, whatever mammal you want, bro. But
yeah.
we're all going to we're going to either write something or present something or make a video of something. And so you're staying within the three columns, but there's the ability to personalize. Like, for example, I'm going to go after red pandas. The regular pandas are not exciting enough. I got the red pandas. And that's what
Mhm.
allows kids to really get excited and engaged.
Yeah, yeah. And the hard part about this in the past used to be coming up with ideas, right? Like
Hmm.
you would look at it and you
Hmm.
would go, "Yeah, this particular class of preschoolers is all about Bluey. Yeah, this particular class of middle schoolers is all about hot Cheetos or Takis or whatever it is."
Hmm.
But how does that even connect? And of course, AI is really good at that. It's really good at making those creative connections. And so we're going to be talking about that kind of on and off throughout this entire webinar. But I did want to point to one other side of all of this too, is that it relates to culture as well. We've been talking about differentiating for our location, differentiating for our students' interest, but also related to our students and like their identity and their upbringing and their family and their cultural values and all of that stuff, which may differ greatly. And Zaretta Hammond has written a lot about this in her book, Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain, which I highly, highly recommend. And I love this quote where she says, "Culture, it turns out, is the way that every brain makes sense of the world. Think of culture as software for the brain's hardware. The brain uses cultural information to turn everyday happenings into meaningful events." It's like how we process what's going on, right? If we want to help
Hmm.
dependent learners to do more high order thinking and problem solving, which I believe we do, then we have to access their
Hmm.
brain's cognitive structures to develop culturally responsive instruction. So that basically means we're going to put on the right set of glasses so that everything comes in clearly into focus so that they can see the content in a way that makes sense for them, right? And there's lots of different ways for us to be able to do that. So if your question now is, okay, Matt, we've been talking about all this for a little while, how do you actually do it? I've got four things for you. Here's one of them. And I've done this for years, is just to do a student interest survey. And so, there's a wide variety of questions. In fact, I've got a whole bunch of different things you can ask students about right here on this slide. And so I have, in the early days when I was teaching Spanish class, I would do a paper survey. And these days, I do Google Forms surveys. And I gather
Hmm.
all of that data and I'll ask them about, their favorite movies and TV shows and their favorite foods and the social media that they use. Not because we're going to use them, because sometimes if I know that I have a class that's pretty heavy on Instagram, and if there is a trend going on Instagram, I can tap into that. They
Right.
hate it and they cringe sometimes, but we got to
Hmm.
do that every once in a while.
Yeah.
So if we gather all of these interests, it basically just informs us, but it doesn't just inform us as teachers to do instruction. It also informs us as human beings to build relationships and to better
Hmm.
understand them and to connect with them. It's all
True
just data
fact.
and it's all
True
building
fact, Matt.
relationships.
I was doing one of the edge protocols called a thin slide with my kids, and the question was, what car do you think your parents will first buy you? Not what do you want, what do you think they'll buy you? And it was hilarious. But the most popular answer was llama, which is, of course, nonsensical, right? but the kids were all into the llama. It was the most popular answer. And I proceeded to go home and rent the Emperor's New Groove because I need a lot of llama jokes this year. And like you're saying, it's just reading the room. It's just reading the room.
Yeah.
If they like llama jokes, that's
Mhm.
what's coming.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, good teachers have done this kind of thing for ages, trying to understand their
Mhm.
students and try to but what we're doing here when we do a student interest survey is we're stacking the deck, right? We're
Right.
gathering a bunch of information that just preloads us so that we can start to be informed from that from the beginning.
Mhm.
And of course, when we do these, it helps our students to understand that we care and that we're paying attention. The big key with these surveys I've found is that if you gather the information, you need to do something with it, or otherwise it just becomes kind of like another meaningless step. Let's go on to number 2, which is to learn from chatbots, summaries, and insights. This one sort of surprised me from my own classroom because sometimes whenever you get your students engaging with AI chatbots, which I know some of you probably have that are watching this webinar, whenever they engage with student chatbots, of course, you as the teacher, you get a summary of what's going on in the class. And one of the things that surprised me is I started to learn things about my students from these summaries. I don't think that this should be the number one way for you to get to know your students is to like be a creepy stalker on the AI summaries of what the students are talking about with the AI chatbots. But I also picked up a little bit just by reading these things, and it's pretty cool to be able to see, whenever you look at those transcripts that the students have with the AI chatbots, and then I like in this particular case, it's summarizing some things. Like it says, enjoys reading in her free time, indicating a potential interest in literature related language activities. Boom. If we're going to study Spanish, I have a little bit of data here that's showing that my students are into reading. And of course, reading is one of those language modalities that we can definitely lean in toward. I've got 2 more for you real quick. Number 3 is just to ask AI for ideas. And we've alluded to this a couple of times, but if you know that your students are into something and you know that you're getting ready to teach, no longer do you have to just crunch your brain in isolation, sitting at your desk during your prep period going,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, I don't know how I'm going to make a connection on those things. Now, all you do is you just go start jamming with ChatGPT or jamming with whatever AI tool that you want and just see what you can come up with. So I started jamming with ChatGPT about the Covered Bridge Festival, and it gave me these ideas just in general of how it could connect with elementary reading, math, art, and even field trips, with middle school social studies, STEM, and language arts, and with high school business, environmental science, career readiness, and multimedia digital art. So it did some general stuff. But then when I wanted to tie it down to math in particular, it gave me a whole bunch of specific things. And some of that stuff is pretty good. It's like the more that you ask the follow-up questions, the better stuff that you get and the more specific it is. And it doesn't mean that you have to use all of these things, but it is definitely a really good brainstorming session. I really like in this example, it makes me think back to a suggestion that I learned from Ethan Mollick, the author of Co-Intelligence. He's a professor at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, who's been doing lots of stuff with AI. And he says, always bring AI to the table. It doesn't matter what you're doing. If it's something that you've done a million times or for the first time, high stakes, low stakes, whatever, you don't get the benefit of its creative, disparate ideas if you
Mhm.
don't bring it to the table. You can choose what to do with it once it's at the table, but you have to at least bring it to the table, I think. And then I've got one more, which is this one that we touched on earlier, which is let students suggest customizations. And so when it comes to this, sometimes if you know that students are into something and you know you're going to be teaching about something and you've racked your brain and you've chatted with ChatGPT, you can even just go to the students and say, do you see any connections with all of this? Maybe after you've started teaching it a little bit and they've got some of that foundational understanding, ask them for connections because they're well versed in their own interests and their own cultures and their own location. They might be able to see some things that you don't. And then, of course, that helps them feel like they've got ownership and a participation in the way that the class is going. So anyway,
Hmm.
those are a few ways I think that you can pull in some of that localization, some of that customization, some of that personalization. And of course, the goal through all of this, I think, is to keep students thinking and to maximize humanity. There's a big knock
Hmm.
right now on AI and education that AI is going to make us stupid and it's going to keep us from thinking and it's going to destroy our ability to do any sort of problem solving. But I think that if we use the tools in the right way, and we've already seen some examples of it here, and we're going to continue to see some more. If we use it in the right way, it can push our thinking. It can push our
Yeah.
students to think more critically and more deeply, and to think about things from different perspectives and everything. So yeah, as far as that goes, I think there's a lot of potential. We've got a couple of questions in the chat real quick. Olga says, how do you get access to the chat bots? Do you use it in your classroom routinely? Is it something shared? I'll address those first two. You've got a variety of different tools that create AI chatbots for students. I mean, if you just start searching on social media or searching on the web, there's a variety of them. I tried one of them out in my own class to have my students interact conversationally in Spanish, and it was okay. I mean, it sort of veered away from my vocabulary list and it veered away from the grammar structures I wanted to focus on. And sometimes it brought in complex Spanish that we hadn't covered yet. So, but I know lots of teachers that have, really started using these on a regular basis, especially to push student thinking and to interact with students. And
Yeah,
then
and Matt,
Ricardo
here's a
said,
really quick one. I don't want to throw you off, but I think it speaks to
sure.
the point. Mike Morrison down in Laguna Beach, he does a thing where the science class. So here's the differentiation piece, right? They're studying molarity. They're studying one of those sciencey things, right? Reverse osmosis. I'm a language arts guy, whatever they do. And so he's got a panel in the front of the room, and those kids are using Chat GPT EDU, but they're answering the student questions. So the students are the audience, like a game show. There's a panel, and watch this. One person is answering in the voice of Stephen Hawking using Chat GPT. One person
Uh-huh.
is answering in the voice of Mr. Rogers, and one person is answering in the voice of another, like pop culture figure. So they're seeing the answer but with different tonality and different aspects to it. And so the kids are fascinated by hearing what they want to hear what these different characters process the correct answer
Mhm.
wise. And that I think that enhances the humanity instead of I'm the teacher, this is molarity, take your notes. Time to go, right? So
Yeah.
that's, I think, speaking to what you're saying is it creates this novelty, this jib jab with the potential character that can't be in the room, and that creates a moment that's memorable for kids.
Hmm. For sure. And then one more quick question, and then I'm going to kick it over to Gene and or John. Ricardo said, I read your newsletter and hope you touch on the pedagogical bias by these AI tools, specifically chatbots. How do you compensate for it? This is something that I wrote about a little bit on LinkedIn and in my email newsletter called AI for Admins. And so there was a study that came out recently that talked about how a lot of the major AI products, a lot of the teacher tools veered towards teacher-centric pedagogies, towards
Hmm.
activities that minimize student voice, and basically were very, very traditional from the front of the classroom type of models. And I think that to respond to Ricardo, I'd say this is why it's important for us to have experienced, qualified,
Hmm.
well-meaning human teachers in the loop. Because if you start
Yeah.
using one of those tools, you're able to identify some of that bias, I think, and then
Hmm.
either A, do a little bit of adversarial prompting where you go against it and you ask it for different things. So I think you can certainly do that. Or if you find that a certain tool is just entirely too teacher centered and there's no way to get around it, either A, you can take the stuff that it gives you and just as a human in your own class do something a little different, or B, use a
Hmm.
completely different tool. There's so many options out there right now. Hopefully you're able to find something that can really work for you.
And I'll do a little add on to that. You
Mm-hmm.
should not be using AI for a worksheet generator. Can I just stop right there? That's
Yeah.
that is not the potential. That'd be like saying, I've got all this really good food. I'm gonna make a meal. Let's boil the meat. No, dude, we're gonna barbecue it. We're gonna barbecue it slow and deep, Texas style. We're not gonna
Mhm.
boil our roast today. And so we got to help teachers understand that's the humanity interaction. What Sir Ken Robinson, remember when he said, Matt, teachers are not a content delivery device. They
Right.
interact with the students and the content.
Yeah, and honestly, to sort of put a pin in that, I think there's all this talk right now about how is AI going to make teachers obsolete? Well, you know, if education was just a content delivery system, like you and Sir Ken alluded to, John, then we would have been out of a job with one-to-one computers and Khan Academy and
Yeah.
YouTube and
How about Accelerator
Wikipedia.
Reader? That didn't work
Yeah.
out.
It's actually we want to showcase. Okay, there's a tool that actually guarantee high quality. So that's what exactly also involves student agency, student voices. Want to just kick off and this agentic. We can skip this slide. We can just directly into the next one. So we want to involve everyone into like build that together. So literally what Matt showcased, or you can localize and also you can get all students' voice. So let's all like pretend we are in one classroom. Okay, we want all the participants to join here. So one thing we want to do is a career pathway. So a lot of school districts, you build your like maybe middle school or high school pathway. So that's actually very difficult for lots of school to introduce. We want to do that together, more like use AI, maybe agentic AI to build one too.
Mhm.
So pretend we are all seventh grader, and let's all like chime in. Okay, what is the if we do career path, any pathway you want to do, anything you want to please type in a chat. We can do that live, and then we can
Mhm.
see how it will work. Yeah, mimic seventh grade.
So what's the ask? What's the question one more time for us to do in the chat?
Yeah, so more like a career pathway. So you can put your career pathway. YouTuber is great, Katie. Anyone else like have some idea? We can collect a few, and if everybody want to be a YouTuber, we can use that as a pathway to build a lesson on units as a more like 2 weeks intro how to become a YouTuber. Is everybody would like to do that? Underwater, well, wow, underwater
Ooh,
welder,
underwater welder. And
financial
this is the
advisor,
great thing. Learning Genie doesn't care, to Matt's point.
game
Gene
developer.
doesn't have to spend all weekend reading a bunch of encyclopedias about underwater welding.
Okay.
Because of AI, he can launch
Yeah.
it.
Okay, yeah, so we have five. So anyone, okay, so which one you feel like the most, like we can vote on one. That's more like we can pick one. Like Matt or John, you can pick what's in here you want to. We can do one together.
These are good, you guys.
Yeah,
I'm the Yosemite guy, so I'm going to skew towards mountain hike guide.
mountain hike guy.
But
Okay,
Matt's the guest, so I would say let Matt pick.
I don't know. I think if it's okay, I'm with Katie on this one. I'm fascinated by the
Underwater
underwater
welder.
welder. Yes,
Yeah,
I
let's
kind of
push
want
the
to see that
limits.
one.
underwater welder. Okay, let's do that. And please, Katie, is that Nicole created this? So you want to I'm going to share the screen. Okay, just I want to illustrate. This is a curriculum Genie, and actually, if Daniel, you can send a link here, everybody can also try that together. So it's a very new tool. We're able to build maybe a short, like we can call that CTE, right? Just it's a unit design. Okay, underwater welder, and we can unit description. We can just use that maybe a 2 weeks intro, 2 weeks of introduction. It's not a very conventional one, but we think we should be able to do. So the whole thing, we can do a 2 weeks intro. Okay, and then if we in California, we can use California coastal area, for example, Santa Barbara. Uh, uh, the
Lots of oil rigs there. That's going to be a goodie.
Santa Barbara as a localization. So literally we want to demonstrate how we can localize, but also you can weave that career path. It can be anything, but today we're actually, we can always weave into like English language or English language arts and probably some of the science standards into the career, even for CTE career path for underwater welder. And yeah, so we try to localize for for Santa Barbara, and also about portrait of graduate. Actually, every school district now starting to build portrait of graduate. So we are pre-selecting creative communicator, problem solver, critical thinker as a source, and then we can go. But actually, the fun part is that if you do have a student actually have a lots of idea about certain topic, they're able to generate the idea. You can use this widget, and they can put that there, and also the questions they build are super valuable. So that like just to use a math intake form about student interest, you can also load that here to build with the idea. So here, what do you
And what's happening right now is what Matt was mentioning is, Gene, you don't have to sit down and go through it's giving you based on, your search, it's giving you the background for underwater welding, which you can override, you can adjust, you can tune, you can say, oh my gosh, that won't work for 7th grade.
Yeah, you can use that for YouTuber, right? You can use for anything, but that's I'm using a chance for CTE, which is difficult, but for any of your current traditional math and science and social study, you can build a unit like that. But here, the unit trajectory overview, right? So student will delve into the intriguing world of underwater welding, specialized field with career CTE through a series of interactive activities and the local connection. They will explore the science, technology, and practical application of this unique profession. So this is targeting for middle schooler CTE pathway, but you can do for high school as well. But here we want to showcase that we weave that portrait of graduate, like communication and reflecting learning is a critical thinker into the unit design. And then here are the concepts, right? Buoyancy, pressure, electrical conductivity in water, marine engineering projects. So it's a very, very new subject. We probably all the first time we see this. But anyway, it's giving you a quick overview. But it will guide us, guide the team, the student and teacher can go also see that together, right? For the 3 week of this intro, what we are learning together. So literally students, when they see their idea being built in, they will be super excited. Right, so first week is a diving to underwater welding basics. Second will be innovation, safety in underwater welding, with actually for 2 weeks. But here you can see it's trying to align the standards, like still like you need to use any class as an English language arts class to focus on the basic standards for English language learning. Yeah, the basics, and also science, right? Science standards can be built in. So AI is providing that. And also we can see the portrait graduate, we are aligning the portrait graduate, and we can weave that into everyday units and everyday lesson. So if we like this 2 weeks, so remember human in the loop, right? So you can always change and touch. Student and the teacher can all like have their opinion how to have that experience. But now we are actually going to something more in depth. So each week we break that down into 5 activities, 5 lessons. 45 minutes lesson. You can change the lesson duration as well, but it will still like a human in the loop of how we are actually want to conduct, lead this CTE pathway, right? First, they will be exploring buoyancy, basics, pressure in the depths and the conductivity and the safety for forces in the water and local marine engineering insights. It's a bit, maybe for some graders, a bit too in depth. But we will see, like we can always adjust. Yeah, so here is edit. So where you are able to always like touch base with where the standards should be. So this is more like the chances you are able to pull all your state standards about ELA, math and science and NGSS, everything. But if you do have a scope and sequence, you are able to pull that in. But also for portrait of graduate, you feel like, oh, we want to focus on certain specific traits, skills for the critical thinker want to add to that. Let's make it really useful, and let's view the lesson. So here's also Edge Protocol. John has a presentation next week. It's super good, but we want to just apply all using the student facing templates and build the detail. So literally what we did, right, is underwater welding We're using Santa Barbara, which they have water. They can really do practice, right? They may have some, some professional can teach
And
that.
Gene, we
Yeah.
have a quick question from Ashley. How long does the free version last for an individual?
Oh, so actually for an individual, it's forever free in a way that you get four units, but you can, if you share on social media once, every time you share, you get 2 new units. So literally, if you share one, you can get 2 more free. You can get lifetime free. And also, yeah, so yes. So actually now you can see, oh, we are building this with the standards, with material, vocabulary, and the implementation steps. It's more like a help, really first time teacher teaching this, how we can get idea, but also we're building a lot of the interactive simulation. For example, they're teaching the idea of a buoyancy. Yeah, you're able to click. Okay, this we bring that to that website about the simulation to learn about buoyancy. If teacher want to weave that into your lesson about this, and also we created slides, right? So immediately, like just in front of our own eye, like there's a new topic we never touched on
Boom.
before. It's here. So how to introduce the buoyancy, the first lesson, the basic concept in front of you, with the activity and also class discussion. Okay, it's already there. But one thing I want to showcase very useful is the get outside is the is how we weave that portrait of graduate, like 21st century skills. So about the critical thinker, right? So lots of people think about we need to do PBL, project-based learning, but we are able to actually every day, every single lesson, there's a chance for teacher to model that. For example, critical thinker for this particular lesson, where students need to evaluate complex issues from multiple perspectives, developing and defending their own informed opinions. So during group discussion, prompt students to consider alternative explanation for their observations and encourage them to explore how different materials might have in various environments. So actually every single lesson, there's a chance for a teacher to practice on that. But we'll talk about later. But here are the how we are supporting standards for teacher, right? So if they want to, hey, use the standards, how I'm going to weave that, like, in ELA and NGSS standards, how I can showcase in a CTE classroom, right? And also we try in a lesson, we try to also incorporate best practice with UDL for IEP students and for English language learner, how we can bring that support and cultural responsiveness. If your students have a different like background of, this is a different subject, but if you talk about farm, talk about different culture, it will be very relevant to bring their own cultural background to be relevant to the student. What's more is that they have a formative assessment. Literally, I want to show you, it's very fascinating, right? So you are able to create like the 3 weeks of all the activity, right, in a few minutes. Just while it's building, I want to
And
any
Gene, from the chat, a couple of other. First of all, Jennifer Goodman said, "I literally just made a lesson during the session, so that was pretty cool." She made one on schwa, which, Matt, as you know, schwa, everybody can't wait for that one.
Yep.
That was really cool. Gene, question from New York is learning Genie, is it, I think they call it EdLaw 2D in New York, is it EdLaw 2D compliant? Do you know off the top of your head? And if
uh,
not, we can figure it out.
Yes, actually, we have all the SD security, like more like all the badges, right? We work with
Right.
iKeep Safe, and we have SOC 2. So I think we comply with all the California standard security and above and beyond. So we should look
Mhm.
into your New York work.
And
Yes.
then Jess asked about, will it work in other countries? And Jess, I just demoed it in Egypt about 3 weeks ago. It does work. And Gene is very responsive. If you say, hey, I'm working in Cameroon and I need this to be loaded up, they can add your country or locality. I know they recently added IB in there. There's Common Core. So I'm not saying it'll appear in a week, but if you send Gene your request, typically it's really easy to add data sets.
Yeah, yes, yeah. So we are going multiple countries very soon. But we want to show you, actually, we built 2 weeks right in front of our own eye. So week one, these are all the subject line. And also we want to show you we have all the vocabulary, even the formative assessment. You can download for teacher version, for student version, but also very good way to reflect on the, especially if you want to tie to the standards, right? So here are the standards. If you do have a specific scope and sequence, it's so easy, right? You can map that out in every week. But also I want to show you, wow, portrait graduate. So there's actually so many opportunity to practice on those critical thinking, right? Critical thinking, critical problem solver, weave that into everyday lesson. Yeah, so that's actually super easy. But also you can also download to
Yeah,
the whole thing to the
this is
Google.
the part. This is the part I wait for every time. Send it to Drive, Gene. This is nuts because Matt, would you agree? I've probably lost 6 days of my life in planner training with the.
Oh,
I'm not going to say any brands, but like, let's
yeah,
all go to the cafeteria and learn how to run the planner, and
it's
then it's proprietary and it takes six
it's awful.
hours. Yeah, if you're a
And then they
district
switch it the
leader,
next year.
yes. And then all my work is gone. If you're a district
Yeah.
leader, remember, there's not much in Learning Genie as far as the training. The training is the human part. What standards do my kids need to cover? What localities? What's my art of design on this? The training part is really simple. You need to know how to start a new unit. You need to look for the little swirly one because that's regenerate. You need to be able to edit and use your college diploma to understand what things your kids need in class. But when you're done, you guys, it sends it to Google Drive. It's all folderized. It's spectacular.
Right, right. Yeah. Actually, you can share that with anyone that can retouch on.
Mhm.
So
Right.
with all the slides, right? So literally we're building 20 slides in a few minutes, and it takes a little bit longer to download. But I want to, for the sake of time, I really want to, yeah. Oh, let's take a look. What's in the real Google Drive. That's super cool. Like this is the foundation which you are able to see from this overview, like on the website. But you are able also can see all the slides we built, right? So week one, these are all the
Look how much it just made all this right now, you guys. It's
right,
completely built to what the prompt Gene wrote, which again, like Matt said, and like Ricardo said in the chat, if there's pedagogical bias on this, that's my part to solve at this point because I'm the
Hmm.
lesson designer. If
right,
if I say, hey, this has too much lecture, I can say no lecture, regenerate, and it'll build it.
right. Yeah. So so it's more like, okay, I want to uh, uh, yeah, so this is what we have done, right? So we career pathway, seventh grader, we're weaving to peer part of graduate, but really the big thing is about student voices should be there. So we mimic like student, but we
Mhm.
the real thing should be student can ask questions. What do I want to learn about? Okay, what do you want to learn about underwater welding, right? What are the things like a bunch of questions so can be asked. So those are typical great guiding questions. And then you can build with your own knowledge, right?
Mm.
Teacher have your own, but students' question will be answered, and you can see how they can explore the entire yeah, the units. Okay. Yeah, I want to slash you and Matt, you want to continue?
Yeah. So, real quick, I wanted to share something with you all. If you wanted to get a little something for free, I've got this to share with you. So this is a PDF toolkit that we created at Ditch That Textbook called the AI Teacher Toolkit. And it's just got a whole bunch of AI tools that support teaching and learning. It's got prompts that you can try out. It's got activities. It's even got a printable page that you can print out and send home to parents showing how they can use AI to support their kids in learning. There's a lot of really
Mhm.
cool stuff in here. And so if you go to that link, ditch.link/toolkit, or if you scan that QR code right there, it's going to take you to a little quick landing page where you just put in your email address and we're going to send you that toolkit. And then also, if you get that toolkit, you're also signed up for my email newsletter, which comes out on Mondays and Thursdays. So if you're not already signed up for that, it'll continue to give you more ideas like you found here. And then finally, if you or someone at your school or school district is ever looking for professional development, I'm doing an awful lot of that right now related to AI, related to student engagement and technology and everything. In fact, John, this is my 2015
That's
keynote
at
on the
Spring
Q
Q.
stage.
I know
Yeah.
that stage.
Yeah,
That was
exactly.
awesome.
So anyway, if you're interested in reaching out about that, there's a link in the chat. Read this one right here, where you can get some information about having me come out. So, but other than that, I'm thrilled that I got a chance to come in here and talk about something that I love and something that I know is baked right into Learning Genie, which makes me very, very happy. And so, excited to get to spend a little bit of time with you all today.
And Gene, Canada is requesting Alberta standards. So let's get the team right on that.
Right. Yes, yes, definitely. And also we want to introduce the 3 upcoming webinars are very good. So we really would like you to enter into UDL from Jennifer Levine, who is the CAO, Chief Academic Officer from CAST. They are doing a lot of great work, UDL, but we are showcasing how UDL can be weaved that into, especially inclusion classroom, how we can do that in a very nice way with AI support. And then John Kerpo has a Edge Protocol. He will be the guru to talk about how the most engaging classroom. And I will wrap up with the whole leadership series with all the priorities we have covered. Yeah, so thank you so much for everyone.